to start on chapter 4, this idea of blessing each moment, which I probably think that's a task of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And something we call maybe living in the present moment. That's another way to say it. This
Yeah.
moment, looking for a blessing in each moment, which, you know, is not about denying when something horrible is happening in your life, that's for sure, but it is looking for how God is present in that. Some of you may have heard of John O'Donohue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you know, I'm far away from the owl this morning, but anyway, he has a little book of blessings. He has lots of books, but this is to bless the space between us. This is
He's a poet.
He was a poet.
Yeah.
And he died a couple of years ago. But here's a blessing that he wrote. Your presence. So this is what we're talking about. His poem goes like this, or his blessing. Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you of all falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. Be consoled in the secret cemetery of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder.
Wow, that is just what she was saying.
That is just exactly, I think, what she said. Took her a couple more words, took her a couple of pages. So let's just start right. I mean, there's some people who haven't read the book, don't know what's happening in there, but for those of you who have been with us a couple of weeks, what was your takeaway, either from last week or this week? The practice of blessing each moment. Any takeaways?
My takeaway was that I'm just not very good at that.
Maisie says she's not very good at that.
Unless I'm crawling around the front yard looking for pictures.
She's looking on the ground and looking for things in nature.
Mm.
It's a place of gratitude, isn't it? This living in each moment. It's about gratitude. Yeah. Yeah. That's what she says. So I agree with her. So on page 39, she said, blessing is to live life from a place of gratitude and to offer thanks and honor for everything that we have, taking nothing for granted.
Count it all joy.
As Sharon would say, for sure, count it all joy. Yeah. And how long would it take you to get ready in the morning? I'm gonna have to get up an extra hour early. Because it does take time. It does take time. And if we don't take anything for granted, what would you know?
What takes time in the morning? I mean,
If you're stopping to not take anything for granted, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
There's a lot of thinking about, and I mean, thinking involved. I mean, you have to be consciously in the present. And I kind of skim through life, rushing from one thing to another until I settle down to something. But as far as every moment, no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there.
I guess, David, the idea being that in every moment there is something for which we can be grateful, and then to recognize that, and I think that would take more time, but that may be a fallacy on my part, right? It may not take more time to do that. I may just think it might take more time, and therefore, I don't know what I'm afraid of.
It's just a consciousness.
Right, it's a habit to learn to do that, and then you can do it quickly.
Yep. And what she also says then is there is a meditative quality to this way of blessing, a habit, Maisie, of remembering the sacred in all things. Can you name something from this morning in anybody's experience about the sacred of something that you experienced this morning?
Reading the four day by day,
Yeah.
and then looking up I think today was Saint Mark.
Yeah, St. Mark, yeah. It's a feast
Been
of St.
reading
Mark.
on Google about Saint Mark.
Mhm. So that's honoring someone whose legacy and impact on us is quite large, because we assume St. Mark is the writer of the Gospel of Mark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what a gift it's been for us in that sacred moment. I would say just driving this morning and noticing people's azaleas were blooming. And I don't know, maybe they have been. But I didn't notice them until this morning.
They might have been.
In the past week,
Okay, it wasn't that, it's not that long?
no, I have an azalea of mine.
Yeah, just how lovely they are, and like every branch has a bloom on it. It seemed very full this morning. Or that my phlox is spreading. You know, I got to walk down the driveway a bit. And,
Is that what that's here in the church, the low growing?
Mhm.
Is that what that was called?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Pretty, they've
That's
done a
pretty.
nice job of along the road.
Yes, yes.
Looks so predominant.
Yeah, just think next year will be even better.
Well, Allison,
That's not the present moment, sorry.
the dog was under the covers, it was pretty outside. We had another vehicle to drive when the tire was flat on the one we were gonna bring. I remembered my keys when I got out of the truck so I could unlock the back door where we parked. I'm just so grateful for all of it. I try to live in that and even say it out loud, to thank the Lord for those things.
What was the best thing about this morning?
Not the flat tire.
The dog,
The
the dog is
dog.
such a joy.
I thought it might have been a phone call from someone.
A phone call from
From this, a saint that we know.
who is bringing Brunswick stew to us.
Yes, it's there, I saw it.
I mean, so there you have it. That's what, I mean, what's not to,
Yeah, and it's good when it's a day like that. I mean, even a flat tire, you have a second vehicle, right? So there's that, it's harder often when it's raining or you're tired or your knee hurts. We have some news that's not as pleasant as other news, right?
right?
So,
Oh, yeah, out in the middle of nowhere where that extra vehicle does you no good.
So it's holding on to that and looking for something in the moment. But I think that you nailed it with your kind of recounting your morning this morning. She talks about in this chapter the way many monks function is spending time in their cells, right? Going and being alone, or the habit of desert fathers and mothers who went out into the desert to be alone, to be able to find time and space and lack of, clutter, right? We are privileged here so often to find ourselves in places of quiet and solitude, right? We talked about that last week at pastoral care, of finding that place of solitude. And even Jesus talks about this, when you go to pray, go and pray off by yourself and go pray. He uses the word in secret. That's the way the translation reads, but it actually just means to take time for yourself. And that might make it easier. I think that's her point. When we do that prep work of solitude, we can begin to see perhaps the blessing in every moment. That without that though, it's harder for us. When our mind is, how did you say it, Maisie? Cluttered. That was a good word, when our mind is cluttered. And so, ascetics or monks or people that have sought solitude oftentimes did it geographically. Like, you know, they had a place where they would go. Think about when people say they're going on retreat or they're going away or whatever, they're usually going to some place that affords a lot of quiet time, alone time. Does that mean it can't happen in the midst of a city or whatever, or your busy life? Of course it could.
Or when you're going to Eagles.
Yeah, you might go beforehand.
You go where?
Ingles. I think before you even enter that parking lot, you have to prepare yourself. And it used to be just at certain times, now it feels like it's all the time. And I've only lived here 3 years, so.
Yeah.
I
Season hasn't begun
hasn't
yet.
even begun really yet, yes.
Mm. There used to be a monastery, well, it was a hermitage. When I lived in Charleston, about 40 minutes away, that you could go and get a little hermitage all by yourself.
Mhm.
And I wasn't very good at being alone and solitude. Well, I had 4 screaming little girls but I did go there a couple of times and try to learn to be quiet and
What was that called? It's in Monk's Corner.
the priory.
The Priory.
There's a little place in Saluda called the Snail's Pace,
Oh, yeah, we used to go to the Snail's Face a lot.
and they have a hermitage. And
Are they
still,
still?
yeah, they're still functioning.
Well, the Connie and Francis have gone. They're the
No,
originals.
Right, but,
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
Huh.
I wanna say.
I used to go there a good bit.
Yeah, I used to take women's groups there a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know Connie and Francis?
No,
That was after their
after
time.
their time, yeah. And, they have a hermitage that overlooks the valley and that cross that sits out there. And, I did 2 silent retreats there. And then you would go and you could have spiritual direction if you wanted it once or twice a day. I could take my meals with the group or not, but man, it's hard to get started, and then it was even harder to leave.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I'm never gonna be able to do this, I'm never gonna be able to be quiet like that, and then I found I could do it, and I was very attached to it. There's another place in Georgia, it's out 16, like in between Macon and wherever you go when you go down 16, on the way to Augusta. It's
On the way to Savannah.
On the way to Savannah.
Way to
16.
Savannah, yeah. It's in Aden, is that the name of the town, or what is the name of that place? It's out in the country, and
There,
can't remember the name of it now.
there used to be a television, show early in the morning, and it was from Metter, Georgia. This Sawyer, Giuseppe or Guido something, and he would talk about the meditative things, and it's out in the middle of farm country.
Yeah. Yeah. This gal had been in the Diocese of Atlanta, and then she and her husband started this retreat center. And they just, is very monastic, and I did several retreats there with people too. So at a smaller scale. Now, I'll remember the name of it like tomorrow, so if you get an email from me with the name of it, you can, I can't even remember her name, the gal that is pretty much in charge of it. But I just mean finding those places, that are like that. It could be your back porch, right? It could be your front lawn.
It could be anywhere.
It can be anywhere.
Yeah.
And
That
that,
studio.
yeah, right, looking for that blessing. She talks about, signs and rainbows. And she gives this example of this dog that she fostered. And she wanted to keep, she thought she might want to keep the dog, but she doesn't keep the dog because they find out that the owners are found and want the dog back, and it's just as well because she really, it wasn't a time in her life to foster a dog. But, you know, she has such great examples of things that are kind of everyday. That's what I appreciate about her writing. It's an everyday thing. It doesn't sound big, but it didn't have to do with anything else. And then, I think the Lectio then is the sign of the rainbow, the covenant given, by God to Noah.
One of the things about her story about the dog, it's sort of like, she wanted a dog, and she thought that fostering, a dog, the pound had asked, the senator had asked
Wasn't it
over Christmas that people, be willing to take a dog for the holidays so that they could close up or something. And so she was really excited about that because she wanted a dog, and so they went and picked out this dog. And she really had the intention of keeping the dog, but she read the signs. She saw the reasons why it was not best for her or the dog for her to take. And then as it turned out, the dog's owners came forward with, but, when you, to me, that point was you get so, I mean, she really her heart was broken having to give up this dog, but she knew it wasn't the time and was able to go with that. And, you know, sometimes I just say, well, to heck with that, I want the dog. Bring me the dog.
She had, interestingly, she had made that decision that no. So it was almost like, you know, when the owners were found,
It was
that
a
confirmation.
Yeah, exactly. And what does your imagination say about this, why this story is about every moment blessing, right? Because she was paying attention, right? Like that, I guess that's the tie
In the face of a hard decision. I mean, you know, not to go with what you want so much, but to recognize that all things point to you should
Not time.
go for this, and then to have it confirmed.
And certainly even she and her husband and their lives together and their choices about, the story of how they moved to Vienna and thought that was absolutely the place they needed to be, and then continually found it to not be the place. And then went to Ireland, and found that that was the place, at least for now. And I think this is why she chose Saint Gobnet as well as her saint to talk about, is because Gobnet also thought she knew where she might want to be. And then it wasn't ever, what do they call it? Her place of resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, many times in the Celtic tradition, in those early centuries, which I started calling hinge saints, because there really wasn't a Christian, quote unquote, church at that moment in Ireland. That there was a Celtic tradition, there was a different kind of worship, but the church wasn't quite as strong as the church would like to think it had been. But so she was a kind of a hinge saint in that the church adopted her when the church became the Church of Ireland and so forth. So she had tried several other places to be, and her place of resurrection ended up in being, oh, I can't even, what's the name of the town?
Ballywarning.
Yes, Ballyvorney. She finally came there because she'd had a vision of 9 white deer. And in one place she saw 3 white deer. Have you ever seen a white deer, ever? Oh.
There's one around here, is
Is it a stag or
Mary, Shona has an albino deer, in her
Mary Solomon?
area,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
where did you see your white deer?
It was on Sea Island, Georgia, back in '69, I think. And,
Were you saying for a
That
sign?
song because people
no,
Darn it.
I just happened to see him, it was at night, and driving down this little dirt road, and,
How much had you had to drink?
It's not.
None of your business.
what is that got to do with it?
Really? I'm amazed because, David, that's exactly 55 years ago. Good memory, I'm impressed.
Well, I don't think you see many white deer, so.
I saw a special one that was not totally white in Sapphire Valley, but it, there was a lot of white on his coat, but he wasn't totally white.
I would just be,
Yeah,
I mean, I
to
think
see
I
nine
a
of,
white squirrel.
right? To see 9 of them.
Really?
And, Ballyhorny, now, St. Gottfried is like the center of their life. I don't know if anybody's been to Ballyhorny. Ellen and I have decided we want to go there on a pilgrimage. So on February, twice a year, February 11th, and I don't know, Whit Sunday, which we call Trinity Sunday now, the Sunday after Pentecost. So the Sunday after Pentecost and February 11th, they, people come to the church there. There's like a path of a pilgrimage. Her house is there, her well is there, her cathedral is there, and one of the things they do is, I cut ribbons up. One of the things they do is they measure this, there's a statue, see, but the statue of her is like wooden and it's about this big, but it was probably made in the 13th century, so it's not as old as she is, but there's a stone statue that's probably newer than the 13th century. But anyway, they take ribbons, I think it must be a money raiser, but they take ribbons and then they measure her with these ribbons, that's what they call it. They just lay them across her top, they wrap them around her face, wrap them around her belly, and then they kiss and venerate the statue. And then these ribbons would be given to someone who was sick. Or someone that you knew had a desire that was not being met. Or you could hang them outside, they have rag trees. That's what they're called, and you'll see, and they're covered in ribbons or rosaries or pictures or whatever. So, I thought it was just like I love any kind of ritual. I just thought it was such a beautiful little story about this devotion, and it's called, it's called pattern because the pattern, I think in Irish just means patron. But she's a patron saint, as I said, of bees and beekeepers and also metal workers or metalsmiths. So, anyway, for all you daughters of the king, we're going to be learning a little bit more about St. Gottfried at the daughters retreat. So she wasn't in the right, so I want you to take some ribbons before you go, and then maybe we'll put a little blessing over those ribbons, and then there may be someone to whom you want to give them. Someone you know that's ailing, someone you know that has a concern or a care in the way of St. Gottfried. I have never heard of her before. Is there anybody who'd heard of her?
No. I think that's such a funny name.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I didn't, that she goes also by Abigail or Deborah, because Gottfried is the Irish. I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I was saying it right, but, because Irish can be funny, just the kind of pronunciation that some of the words have. So, St. Gottfried, and, she also set out in a boat with no oars. Right, we knew about that from St. Brendan, St. Columba. This was a common practice, let God lead me where I'm gonna go.
Do you think that,
but that's the
actually did that and, at a time when they were unsure what way to go and they realized that they needed to let God determine, and they actually did that as a sort of symbol of
their trust.
their trust?
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
And And of course, we don't know how many of them never made it.
You make me-
There could have been thousands of other possible Celtic saints who just crashed on the rocks, and that's it. But I hope that's not.
That was God's answer.
That was God's answer, that's right. Go no further. But, and perhaps as legend or myth or, story goes about them, it's a metaphor, isn't it? I mean, us trusting in God to lead us where we are to go. I don't care what that's about, vocation, setting up new, bringing life to different areas, she wanted to establish, she thought she knew she wanted to establish a monastery. We use that word now, that probably wasn't the word they used, but a place where people who practiced religion or practiced spiritual life could gather and live.
Wasn't there,
I bet we're gonna say the same thing, go ahead.
wasn't there a story of John of the Cross in his dark night of the soul, where he gets in a boat with no,
Yeah,
yeah.
You weren't gonna say the same. I was gonna say that in reading that chapter, there was a reference to her as a monk.
yeah,
And I guess I only ever thought of that as a masculine
yeah.
term. What is it?
No, I mean, in some places they might call them an abbess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But monk is what they were. A nun might be another term,
right.
if they lived in a cloistered life. But I appreciate that in this book,
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
she's ours.
referred to it in a kind of a non-gendering way,
yeah.
right?
That's
That
very
was,
strong, genuine.
yeah, and
Because
before,
of our.
yeah, right? Now, I don't, so the more, the research I did on her, lots of scholars called her, that she wanted to start a nunnery.
Mm.
And I guess that would be more in line with how we think of it. Like, I don't know if it was a mixed community or not. I don't know that anyone knows that, right? I think the assumption being that like Bridget, who lived about the same time as Gobnet, Bridget's community was for women, or that's the way the story is told, right? So, but since maybe it wasn't her, but in great detail, someone I read talked about that that there really was no one reporting on who she was. It was only later. There's no tradition. So the source material, if you would, is not there from the 5th and 6th century. The material becomes later, like as early as the 8th century, they find it. But they don't really have, no one was taking notes. There weren't records, there weren't, and since the Catholic Church did not get involved until after the Synod of Whitby, right, in whenever that was, 10 whatever, there would not have been, I mean, the church was very good about written records of some things, and so they didn't have that written record to go to until after the Catholic Church became the church, right?
So when did she gain sainthood?
Probably, in terms of the Catholic Church, when the Catholic Church assumed all of Ireland and England under their rule, which would have been the Synod of Whitby.
And so they had a lot of verbal,
Yeah,
what is it, tradition,
yeah,
stories about her, and they,
yeah. So one of the stories about her is that there's a wall, and in the wall, this is not just a story because it exists. In the wall, there is a ball. It looks to be like this big when you see it online, and it's inside the wall. And like you look in and you can reach in with your hand and touch it. So no one knows what it's made of. Is it iron? Is it metal? Is it rock? What is it? Somebody thought it was agate, polished, right? Because that's fairly prevalent in that area. So the legends are that there was somebody, like, I don't know, some other group of people trying to build a castle, and she would go out every night and destroy whatever they built during the day with this ball. And eventually they gave up. and didn't build the castle there. That's one of the stories, you know, so. The other one of her legends is that there was someone, again, could have been, who would they have been, I don't know, Picts, somebody was trying to invade, and, she sent her bees after them, and they stung them in the eyes. So she weaponized the bees and this large ball of agate to do her will.
It was killer bees.
They were killer bees early on. That's right. Early on. Well, here's a little handout about her that just really sums up what, and then on YouTube you can watch if you want, about the pilgrimage itself and what they do, and just fascinating stuff. Did anyone do any of the exercises in the chapter? You know, the contemplative walk, or there's some interesting artwork about Gobnet too that I have found in my searches, but so one of the exercises is to write the I am, to be present to the signs around you. And I found that because it seemed easy enough for me. So we write from the perspective of the image.
I am the moon.
And so I was like, I am the green leaves. I am new each day. I do that. I am the new moon. I shine everywhere, like that. It was really fun to kind of do that. And then the opportunity being to see myself in that moment as that thing, as that gift, as that creation, and as that way of being.
Things that you're moved by, things that you see that you're drawn to, that, and say, I take on that, I am that.
Yeah, and to be grateful for, because I think there's something about being grateful for that too, that I wouldn't have seen, like the azalea bush, and helping me to be in the moment.
Yeah.
When you say that, I am, because say that moon on Tuesday night, and when I think that was the fullest, the pink moon, it was gorgeous. Its location in the sky, its size, its color, it's not really pink. I think they say it's pink because of phloxes blooming, but just recognizing that, not just letting the cycle go unnoticed.
Yeah, this morning around between 3 and 4, the moon was coming through my bedroom window, and my whole bed was lit up with light.
Wow.
And Nora can't sleep in a full moon.
Really? Because it comes in the window, or because,
Well,
I guess,
it's pulling on her, whatever her water retention, estrogen, whatever you call it. It's always a full moon, she can't sleep. Or not well, sleep well. But, and it looked like headlights coming in the window this morning.
how often, I mean, that moon, I mean, it's in different positions all the time, so does that happen for a little period of time?
Right.
Several nights in a row?
Yeah, a couple of nights, like Tuesday and last night.
Yeah.
And then, but, yeah, if it's not cloudy, full moon, it comes right in the window.
So I would just refer to her paragraph on page 51 about writing blessings as a way to connect with present moment living. She says, consider writing a blessing for the creatures in your life, whether domesticated animals or wild ones you encounter out in nature. Bless the unfolding rhythms of the day and the cathedrals of creation that inspire you. Bless the food you eat as nourishment from the earth to sustain your life and service. So, how is that? That's a good summation, isn't it, of the whole chapter and or the whole thing. And then she closes with a prayer, or not prayer, well, a poem, prayer that she wrote for St. Gobnet. I'll see where we are in our time together. Well, we have lots of time this morning, so. What else would you guys say about what this? Do you have anything else that you'd like to do? Or we could practice writing some I am things together if you hadn't done that. Next week's chapter is on the practice of soul friendship, or what's sometimes called anamkara. Anamkara, soul friends.
Love that word,
Yeah,
those words.
yeah. And I encourage you to maybe find a copy of, John O'Donohue also has a book called Anamkara, where he talks about a book, it's called Book of Celtic Wisdom. So he's got a lot, he wrote 5 or 6 books, about just that, about the presence of living in every moment, the blessing of that.
I can see where that would, enrich our life, my life.
Mm-hmm.
It would take some conscious work to remember, and then when I remember to sort of be there, try to, it's hard work, but I can see where it would be very enriching, to take on that, and to be able to be successful in being in the moment and being thankful as you look around. Just see the fairy houses. It's opened my eyes to. I've just sort of described the eyes of my heart, because it's just a delight to me, and it's such simple little, that would otherwise be considered junk or trash, in that in the yard or in the woods, or. But then I see them in a different way, and to be able to kind of translate that to my inner, to make everything that way, would just be glorious.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what each of the exercises that she prescribes at the end of the chapter, they are intended for that very thing. That what is the thing that will hook you and perhaps start you on the road toward this present moment blessing thing.
Yeah.
Right, like how will that work for you? How would that?
Even a way to relate to that.
Yeah.
Experience.
Mm-hmm. I really do think that's exactly right. And how else do you begin a habit?
Mm-hmm.
How else do you begin that? You just try it, right?
And value.
Or see that you may have already been doing something. I think, oftentimes I know even I can struggle with saying, well, I don't know how to do that. Like, I can't do that, or I don't want to start that, or I don't have a guide, or I don't know how to, even get into that. It wouldn't even matter. Is it French baking? I don't know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I could do that, but I don't think I'd be very good at it. I would already start to
That's the way I felt when I read this book. I thought, this is far from me. And it was frustrating to me. In a way, in a kind of inner, like, that's not who I basically am, or something. There's some people who are more ethereal, and you can see them getting there or being there without even reading this book. But it is something to desire.
Mhm.
You know, it is something to value and desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so, I mean, I may get there by the end of the book, you know, I may have, it's not that I don't agree with anything, I do. I mean, when we talked about thresholds and we know them and we've been there, we've walked through them, we've stayed in them, we've experienced them, right? Like, we could identify those. When we talked about dreaming, we do all mostly dream, or try to remember what we've dreamed, right? And then, wandering was probably the hardest chapter for any of us. How is it that we could just do some holy wandering? What? Just wander around without an intention, without a purpose? I need to get 10,000 steps. I've never seen this waterfall. I've never been to Nantahala, whatever it is, right? Like, we generally find some way to organize ourselves so that it has a purpose, not like I'm just going to wander. And to open that space up for us has just been really amazing.
A boat with no oars.
A boat with no oars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very frustrating, person to hike with because I don't want to cover ground. I want to be in it.
Yeah.
And so
Get everything out.
they all get way ahead of me and then they get mad at me.
Yeah.
So once I went to the grocery store and got a plastic tablecloth and took it to the woods so I could just sit down and look at all the little things around me.
So you're better at some of these things than you thought. Yeah. I love the trail at Devil's Fork because it's basically it's like a mile. And, you know, you can go as slow as you want. I mean, we go to see the bells when they bloom and, you know, you just can, I mean, there's nothing there. It's a flat trail and the bells bloom along the river there or the creek or whatever it is. And you just stand there. And you just know this is the only place in the world that the Oconee bells bloom. And you just, you know, I mean, you can look at the trees and the names of something and it's an informative trail. But I love that about it because that's the only reason we're going. We're only going to see the bells. I mean, we've seen other things, we've found other things, we've explored it, but, you know, it's about as close to holy wandering as I've ever gotten, I think.
Have you seen any lady slippers?
Are those like in the Trillium family? No, I don't know.
They're not, but they bloom where the trillium bloom too.
Oh, okay.
And where I've seen the trillium, I've seen the lady slippers.
Are they out now?
I would think they would be.
I would think
What does
so.
a lady slipper look like?
Oh,
It looks,
It looks like a lady slipper.
yeah,
no,
they
so-
come in pink
Yeah.
looks like-
slippers or yellow slippers.
it looks like a jack in the pulpit, doesn't it?
Okay, okay.
And with like a sack.
On the bottom?
And, yeah. Isn't that what I'm thinking of? Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go to the internet. You are not helping me any.
There were some, Hampton, along the golf course on a couple of holes. I've seen them there.
Oh, they're in the orchid family.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we lived down in Tomasi, we had 6 acres
Okay.
and there was a little mountain right in next to our front yard, and over there on the side of that mountain, it was wooded. Is where I saw both of those things, trillium and lily slipper.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of a trillium. The larger part of the slipper is below it and a trillium is on the top. So I think it's like the opposite in my mind as I look at it. Yes. Oh, how delightful. No, I have not seen any.
There,
But they have several different kinds of leaves on these. So, some are the variegated ones, dark white, and others are green, just green. So that's a good trail for just wandering.
Where is it located?
Devil's Fork at the Lake Jocassee.
Oh, okay.
South Carolina.
So it's really easy to,
down 11.
just a few, like a mile past
Oh, I
where
see.
Whitewater comes in or whatever.
Yeah, I see the sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you just go back and park where there's a ridge above the lake, and there's parking there, and the trail's right at the end of that parking lot.
We tried camping there one time and it was a holiday or something. There were so many jet skis and people that and we made the mistake of taking our dog who barked at so we just pulled up tent and left. That's not,
It's
the
beautiful
place.
there then.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely place. Okay, well, so next week we'll talk about, spiritual friends, and I bet you all have had a few, soul friends, we sometimes call them. Be thinking about them and who those people have been in your life, and what those gifts have been. And, I'm wondering if Sharon, in your lovely voice, would you read, Saint Gobnet and the place of her resurrection? I love that term, looking for her place of resurrection and what that might mean for us. What is our place of resurrection? Where is
I've seen some examples of what reading about that. It was actually the place where they died. But I didn't think that was exactly what they meant overall, that found a place to be where they would end up.
or where you would be reborn?
Yeah.
Because resurrection is to be reborn, right? So I think that was it. Yes, I do hope that at our deaths we are reborn, just in a different way. Okay.
Hey, let me call you. I'm in a meeting. Let me call you back. Okay.
Okay,
Saint
Sharon.
Gobnet in the place of resurrection. This is on page 51 and 52. On the tiny limestone island, an angel buzzes to Gobnet in a dream, disrupts her plans, sends her in search of 9 white deer. She wanders for miles across sea and land until at last they appear, and rather than running toward them, she falls gently to wet ground, sits in silence as light crawls across sky, lets their long legs approach and their soft, curious noses surround her. Breathing slowly, she slides back onto grass and clover and knows nothing surpasses this moment. A heaven of hooves and dew. Is there a place for each of us where we no longer yearn to be elsewhere? Where our work is to simply soften, wait, and pay close attention? She smiles as bees gather eagerly around her too, wings humming softly as they collect essence of wildflowers, transmuting labor into gold.
So our friend Christine is also a poet. We've discovered that about her as well, and also being a spiritual guide. So
Yeah, she's very.
she also has a website, y'all, with just where her poetry is and some of her other stuff, and usually has some beautiful images attached to it. So,
Has she written any other books?
oh, lots of books.
Oh,
Yes, tons of books. The Soul of a Pilgrim, The Artist's Rule, Eyes of the Heart, one of her books. And that's using photography as Christian contemplative practice. Praying with the elements. I know, the wisdom of the body, illuminating the way, embracing the wisdom of monks and mystics. So she's written quite a few books. Well, good to see you all. I will give, we will connect this handout I have online, so that those of you who were not with us in person can still have access to to some more information about St. Gobnet. And I hope that you all have a good rest of your Thursday, and I'll see some of you on Sunday.